Hey everyone, I'm Isaac from Locofy. In this video, you'll learn how to easily generate NextJS components and use them in your Prismic projects. First, we'll start by designing some new components in Figma. Then we'll learn how to turn these new designs into NextJS code components using Locofy. Locofy is a design-to-code platform that lets you turn your Figma or Adobe XD designs into production-ready front-end code, helping you to build and launch faster. Finally, we'll export the Locofy generated code components and learn how to easily add them into your Prismic project. If you're not familiar, Prismic is a powerful content management system that lets content teams easily manage website pages. After a one-time setup, which you will learn in this video, the content teams can then independently create pages by assembling and rearranging components, as well as edit its content, share previews, and publish on schedule. So let's get started from the very beginning by designing our new components. We have a simple NextJS starter template provided by Prismic. Now we want to create a few new components to add to this. For example, we might like a subscribe section, a 3-column section to showcase more blogs, and so on. Let's design a few of these components and generate code for it using Locofy. To save time, instead of designing from scratch, let's grab a couple of components from the Locofy UI kit, such as this form section and a couple more sections. Now we can tweak these designs in order to fit the theme. I've pasted a screenshot of the NextJS starter template here. You can see it's mostly using dark gray colors, sharp edges, and this font, which is Inter. So let's quickly tweak these on our designs. So we can change these corner radius, the colors, and these font families. Perfect. Now that we have tweaked the UI kit in order to fit the design of our starter templates, we can go ahead and start turning this into code. So typically, if you were to code this out manually by hand, it might take maybe a couple of days in order to turn this into fully responsive, pixel perfect code. But I'm going to be showing you how with Locofy we can do this in just minutes. So first, let's go ahead to fire up our Locofy plugin. If you haven't done so before, you can click on the Resources tab, head to Plugins, and search for Locofy. Then you can click on Run. And here we go. So we have our Locofy plugin fired up, and I'm going to create a new project for this. So let's create a new project, and let's call this Components for Prismic. So let's use Next.js because our starter template is in Next.js and it's also in JavaScript. And let's use the Tailwind setting for styling. So let's go ahead and click on Create. So depending on the repository that you have, you can go ahead and tweak the project settings accordingly. Now, let's go ahead and have a look at what we have in the plugin. So there's a few main things that you can do here. So we have tagging of layers. Next, there is drag and drop for pre-built components. And this is typically when you're working with a new design from scratch. In this case, we already have our design, so we are going to be working mostly with tagging of layers. Next, you can also preview your design and view your code. So let me explain what tagging is. Tagging helps you to bring your elements such as buttons, inputs, and more to life. Let me show you what happens if you do not tag. So first, let's click on this frame and we can go ahead and click preview. Now you can see that in our preview, this is already running on live code. So everything you see here is already generated in code. However, when we hover over this button, you can see that it does not actually work. So what tagging does is that it helps us to indicate to the Locofy plugin that this is a button and how it should behave. So let's go ahead and tag this button. So it's simple to tag. Simply click here into the layer on Figma. Then we'll go ahead and select the appropriate tag. So click on button. And next you'll see three main tabs: properties, styling and layouts, and actions. And the properties tab is where you can take care of certain properties. The first thing, of course, is to indicate if you are using a UI library. Locofy helps you to work easily with the most popular UI libraries like Material, Design, Bootstrap, and Chakra. But we are working with a custom design here, so let's go ahead and click None. Here you can tweak further attributes such as autofocus, disabled, and add advanced attributes if required. Now let's head to the Styling and Layouts tab, and here's where you can take care of responsiveness and how your button looks across different screen sizes, as well as how your button looks in its different states. So for example, if you want this button to look differently on tablet or mobile, you can actually come into here and edit these settings accordingly. In this case, we just want to add a simple hover effect. So let's head into the hover tab and simply change the fill color over here. So we might want this to become a slightly even darker color. And that's it. So now we have added a hover effect for our button. Finally, we can also add actions for our button. So you can use actions such as scroll into view, change page, open the URL, and so on. In this case, let's just go with a simple example for open URL, and we can open up Google, for example. Perfect. So let's go ahead and click Done. Perfect. So now that we have tagged our layer, let's check out a quick preview. And you can see now that when I hover over it, we have our hover effects. And when I click on it, it's going to take us to our Google page in a new tab. Great, let's have a look at another example of tagging. So we have some inputs here and we like these to work. Without tagging, you can see that this doesn't actually work. We can't type inside of this input. So we can go ahead and tag it. Once again, simply select the layer in Figma, then tag it as an input. We'll choose none for the UI library, and you can see we have automatically detected the placeholder as enter your name. Let's go ahead and click done and preview this. So now you can see we can enter our name here. So we could say locos from Locofy. Perfect. So you can see how we can easily tag and turn these elements into actual working components. Now we also have to make sure that all of our components are responsive. So we can also take care of that in the Locofy plugin. Firstly, the Locofy plugin automatically reads your Figma auto layout settings. So as you can see, we have already applied some constraints and it is already slightly responsive here inside of Figma. Locofy automatically reads that to generate responsive code for you. However, at a certain point in time, you will notice that the design still is going to break down. So we can take care of this in the Locofy plugin. Observe firstly that we have these two elements, two blocks over here, side by side inside of this auto layout frame, and it has been stacked horizontally. Now with Locofy, we can have this stacked vertically on a smaller device. So firstly, we can go ahead and select this auto layout frame and tag it as a container. Let's call this a section. And inside of the styling and layouts tab, here's where we can define how it looks on a smaller device. So let's go into the 768 media query screen. And we want to change the direction from horizontal to vertical. So let's see how that looks like in the preview. So you'll notice that as we shrink, we snap down into a vertical direction layout. So that's how you can easily tag your designs and add responsiveness for them. Now, the neat thing about using Locofy's UI kit is that all of the steps that I have shown you have already been done for you. So if you're using this Locofy UI kit, all of these elements have been already pre-tagged. So you can simply preview them and they have all been tagged earlier for you. Also, all of the responsiveness have already been added. And we'll be adding more and more components to this UI kit for you to easily tweak and use. Perfect. So now let's have a quick preview before we view the code. Let's combine all of them into a single page so we can see what it would look like when we put them together on our templates. So we'll go ahead and preview this. And you'll see that we have everything fully responsive. And our inputs are also working. Great, so now let's view the code for these components and export them for use in our Prismic project. So let's go ahead and click on View Code. Don't worry that they are all together in a single frame. We'll show you how you can export individual components in the Locofy Builder. So we will select this frame to sync across and click View Code in Builder. And that's done. Welcome to the Locofy Builder. As you can see, our design has been successfully synced across. Now let me quickly introduce you to what you can do inside of here. And there are three main things that you can do. Firstly, you can view your code. Secondly, you can create components and add props. Thirdly, you can easily view and share a live responsive prototype. And of course, at the end, you can export your code. Now let me walk you through each of these very quickly. Firstly, for viewing of code, you can see at the bottom, we have two code panels. So on the left, we have our NextJS code. And on the right side, we can view our Tailwind configurations. You can also check your code framework settings and make changes if required. Next, we can also create components and add props, and this is going to be very important because we'll be using them inside of our Prismic project. So to create components is easy. Select the element and then click on Make Components and give it a component name. In this case, callout section is great, so we'll click on Create. Now you'll notice that the component code is generated on the fly. So we have a new JavaScript file called callout section. And here you can see the code for our callout section. And the next thing we want to do is to add props. So let's quickly have a look to define what we would like our author on Prismic to be able to change. So we might want them to be able to edit the images here, all three of them. We want them to be able to edit the title, the paragraph text here, and maybe the button text. So we'll go ahead and create props for each of these. Simply click on Add Value Prop. So for this Swiss winter image, which is this one on the left, let's simply give this a prop name of image1 and click Save. Now we'll do the same for this image over here, which is the mountains pop-up image. So let's give that image a name of image2. And we'll go ahead and quickly add props for all of these that we had decided on just now. So this would be image3. This would be our title. This is the button text. And finally, this is our paragraph. So now we have created the props for all of the different elements that we would like our author on Prismic to be able to edit. Great. So now we can also go ahead and create props and components for the rest of our sections. And here, let me take a pause to show you how we can also easily reuse components that we have created. So firstly, let's turn this entire block section into a component. And for these individual cards, we are going to want to use the same component across all three of them. So first, let's go ahead and create a component for this. Let's call it block card. Once again, we want our author on Prismic to define the image, the title, and the description. So let's firstly create a prop for it. So we'll do one for the card image first. Let's simply name this image. Perfect. Now, before I create additional props, I'll show you how we can reuse the same component. So let's go ahead and click on the next card. And we're going to click on Make Component. And this time, instead of creating a new component, we're going to use our existing component, which is the block card we had just created. So click on Select. And what you'll notice is that we also automatically detect the elements that are changing across each component in order to generate the props for you. So here you can see that a card title prop has been added for the title, and a card subtitle prop has been added for this text at the bottom. So we can go ahead and quickly rename these. And that's it. So let's finish up creating our components and adding our props. Great. So now that we have created our components and added props, the third thing we can do is to view and share a live responsive prototype. So you can do that over here by clicking on View Prototype and clicking on Share Prototype. Simply copy this link, or you can send it via email. And now you can view this on any device. So you can see how your components are going to look ahead of time before you actually do the export. Great, so now let us export our code. And instead of exporting it as a screen, let's go ahead and export the individual components instead. So here we have our callout section, recent story sections, big story card, and so on for all the different components that we had created. So we'll choose the download zip file option and click on confirm export. And that's it. So you can see how we have easily gone from designs into code in just a couple of minutes. Now let us open the exported file and see how we can easily add these components into our Prismic projects. Here we are inside of VS Code, and we have opened up our exported file. So you'll notice we have all of the components that we had exported, and these correspond to these components over here that we had created in the Locofy Builder. Next, we also have our global CSS, all of the images that we had used inside of our components, as well as our Tailwind config. Now let's also have a quick look at the NextJS sample project that we had copied. This is the NextJS starter Prismic repository, and we had gotten this by simply following the instructions here on the Prismic documentation. So we had chosen this information site and installed it by using these commands. Great, so now let's quickly run this repository in development mode just to have a quick look at our page. So we have it running. Let's head over to localhost 3000 to view the page. Great, so you can see we have the starter page set up. Now, our goal is to actually start to add these components, which we have created, into our starter page. So before we do that, let's make sure that we have our Tailwind configs copied over to the NextJS starter project. So we'll go ahead and copy of our configurations. Paste it inside of here. And also grab our fonts families. Great, let's save it. So now we have successfully merged our Tailwind configurations. The next thing we want to do is to start bringing our components over from our export into the Next.js project. So let's go ahead and copy all of these components and paste them inside of our Next.js project inside the components folder. So I've hit paste, and you can see now we have all of our exported components inside of our Next.js repository. I think we've got all we need here. So let's close or minimize this VS Code window. Great. So now that we have all of these components inside our repository, how are we going to add these to our starter page? So the first thing we need to do is to create slices, and then we'll add these slices into our homepage over here. So let's head over back to VS Code and open our slice machine. Since it's already running, let's open up localhost 9999. Here we are in the Prismic slice machine. If you're not sure what the slice machine is all about, you can check out one of our earlier videos we had done over here to learn more. You can also check out some of these Prismic documentations. Great. Now the first slice that we are going to create is going to be the form section slice, which is this component over here. So this component that we had exported is the form section component here. And you'll notice that we are accepting no props for this component. This is because we are not going to allow the author on Prismic to make any changes to this form. It's going to be just used as it is. So let's go ahead and create a slice for this now. Head over to slices and click create slice. So let's go ahead and name this form section slice and hit create. Now recall that we do not need to provide any props, and we don't need any additional data to feed into our components here. So let's go ahead and remove these fields and save to our file system. Don't worry about the screenshot. We're going to generate that in a moment. First, let's push our changes. And that's it. So now we have created a new slice. The next thing we need to do is to connect this slice that we have just created with the component that we had exported earlier on. So let's head over to VS Code to do that. Head over to the slices folder, and you'll see a new folder that has been created called the form section slice. Let's head over to index.js. And you can see that this slice is going to render this default section, which was pre-filled by Prismic. So let's remove this. And instead of that, we want to actually render the component that we had exported, which is the form section.js. So first, let's import it. and then we are going to use it in our form section slice. And that's it. So now that we have connected it, let's head back into our slice machine and let's update the screenshot. So here we can capture a screenshot from the slice simulator. And since we have provided our component to it, it is now able to generate this screenshot. So let's take the screenshot. Perfect. So we can view the screenshot. This is good. Great. Now let's close this. So now we want to be able to add our slice to our home page. So let's head over to custom types. And our home page is of the page type. So let's click into that. And now we need to update the slice zone in order to accept our new slice. So let's click on update slice zone. We're going to check the new slice we had created and click save. Now let's push this to our file system and push these changes. Great. So now that we have added the slice to the page, let's head over to the Prismic editor. So we'll come over here into our repository and head into our home page. And inside of the editor is where we can now add slices to our home page. So let's go ahead to add a new slice. And we'll look for our form section slice. And that's it. So now that we have added this, let's click save and just push it directly. Great, so now that we have published it, let's head back to our home page on localhost. And you'll see that at the bottom, we now have our form section. And it's working just as how we had created it using the Locofy platform. Perfect. Now, let's go ahead and do this one more time with another component. So the next one that we are going to add is this callout section that we have over here. So if you recall, we are going to let the authors edit the images, the title, the paragraph, as well as the button text. So let's go ahead and create the slice for that. Head back to our slice machine and create a new slice. So we'll call it callout section slice. Now, if you recall, there are a couple of information that we want to pass to the component in order to render it accordingly. So let's create those fields. So let's go ahead and edit this. So this is title, that is correct. We want to call this paragraph. And next, let's go ahead and add a few new fields for our images. So we have our image. Let's call this image1. Add it. And we'll add 2 more. And finally, we'll add the button text. So let's add a simple field. Great. So now we have added all of the fields that we will allow our authors to edit. Let's go ahead and save this to our file system and push these changes. Now, once again, let's connect this to the component that we had exported. So head back into VS Code and look for our new slice, which is the callout section slice. Head into index.json And once again, we'll remove the boilerplate code. Let's import our callout section. Okay, and we will put it inside of here. Great. Now let's hit save. Now, one more thing that we want to note is that our callout section actually receives these props. So we are going to want to grab these and add them into our callout section tag. Let me quickly format this. So what we want to do is now to pass the information that we had received from our slice into this component. So here, let us check what this property would be. So for the image, we would look for slice.primary.image1. And we want the URL parameter for this. Okay. Next, we'll do the same for these as well. For the title, we are going to need to look for this. So slice primary title. And because this is a paragraph text, as you can see over here, this is a rich text. We will need to add .text. So this is how we are going to refer to the information inside of this field. Next, we'll do the same thing for our paragraph. So let's have a look. This would be primary paragraph. Once again, we will get the first paragraph. And for button text, let's grab this and choose the text. So the reason why we don't have to add an index for this is because this is a simple text, whereas these two fields are rich text. Okay, so let us close the tag and hit save. Great. So now let's go ahead and come back here into the slice machine and let's update the screenshot by capturing one from our slice simulator. There we go. So something like this looks good. Let's take a screenshot. And we're done. So now that we have connected our slice to our component, let's save it again to file system with the updated screenshot. Now we can head over to page and add this slice to our slice zone as well so that we can use it in our page. So let's include it, hit save and save it to the file system. Head over to changes and push all of our changes across. And now we can head over to our editor. Let's hit refresh once. And we can add that slice somewhere in our page. So let's just put it right before our form section. So add a new slice. We'll add our callout section slice that we had created. So let's fill in some information here. why don't we go ahead and use this? And we need to upload some images as well. So I'm going to go ahead and upload some media. Now let's use our images that we had uploaded. And finally, for the button text, let's use view full gallery as well. And that's it. So let's go ahead and save this and publish it. And check it out in our homepage. So let's refresh this. Great. So you'll see that we have our component added to our page. As you can see, it is super simple to integrate the components we had exported into Prismic and to easily use them inside of the editor. We can easily edit the images and text over here, so your authors have full control over what they want to do on the page. I've also gone ahead to add our other sections as well, such as our blocks section slice, as well as our recent stories section. And you can see how you can easily reorder them dynamically inside of the Prismic editor. So I'm just reordering them a little bit. I want the form section to be at the bottom. And now I can simply hit save and publish this. So let's head over to home, and once again, with a quick refresh, you can see that we have all of our new sections, such as the blocks cards, our callout section, which we had done together, the recent stories section, as well as the form. And you can see all of this is fully responsive, just as how we have set it up inside of the Locofy platform. As you can see, we managed to very quickly, in a short period of time, design our new components in Figma, turn it into production-ready code using Locofy within minutes instead of hand-coding it for days. We then added it to our Prismic project so that authors and creators can easily use these components in the Prismic editor. Now they can freely add the new components to their pages, dynamically reorder and customize them, all without a developer. I hope you found the video useful, and we look forward to seeing what you'll build and launch faster using Locofy and Prismic.